So welcome everybody. This is a presentation to highlight what is happening right now, which is really very, very intense, particularly for the Brotherhood. This whole year, 2020, has been a year of initiation. And now we're getting to the pointy end of the stick. You can see on screen a couple of pointy sticks. Yes, it's Luke and Darth. The showdown with the Dark Father, that's what Darth Vader means. And whether that's the corrupt government or your own father or your inner father, it's all happening. And it's all happening in October. So to the guys that are watching this, whether that's live or on the recording, if you don't feel like leaving the bedroom and wrapping yourself up in the cave of your own duvet, you're not alone. This too shall pass. So there's no shame in needing some insight to help navigate the terrain. Every ancient king worked closely with an astrologer so that they could time everything from, you know, when to plant and when to plan a battle campaign. So learning to live within the alignment of the cosmic and earthly cycles is how we will come back into balance and restore heaven on earth. So really glad that you could make it to this presentation. So I've got a couple of brothers here with me today, Luke Anderson and Paul Spallini, dear brothers who are as passionate as I am about really supporting the global brotherhood through this transition, and we'll be speaking to them later on. But first, I just want to give you the lay of the land in terms of these 6 astrological transits that are happening right now that are putting the screws on. Now, they're putting the screws on everybody, and every woman who's watching this, her soul is half masculine and half feminine. Same with the guys. So we welcome the sisters that are listening to this as well. I'm sure you'll relate to it. But it's especially highlighted for the men. So here we have the 6 reasons that the pressure is now on the collective masculine. Number 1, we have the planet Mars in its home sign of Aries. Now you can see on screen, Mars is a very fiery planet. And normally it spends about 6 weeks in a sign. Not this year, as if COVID wasn't enough. 6 months, my friends. That's how long it is spending in Aries. So, you know, it's no short miracle that we haven't had a 3rd World War this year. This will be bringing up everything that you feel frustrated about in your life and bringing it up to a head like a pussy boil. So, you know, this is a time to journey anger. We've been taught that anger is, you know, something that must be transcended, that it's not very zen. Well, I've got something to tell you. It's not zen to suppress anything. Babies are zen. If they express their rage, guess what? They end up in the other polarity of experiencing joy. So anger is your friend. But we need to be in right relationship with anger. We need to understand it's like a red flashing warning light that says something needs to change. You've got to look at this. You've got to understand why you're feeling triggered, and you've got to address it. So that is the call to action here. We started in June, all right? And this influence is going to take us right through to January 7. So we're feeling like, oh, I've got to take action. And yet the anomaly, Mars is currently retrograde. So whilst he feels like taking action, he's being prevented from taking action. It's not the right time. It's a time for contemplating action, which is not comfortable for Mars. Mars is like, right, let's get the party started. Let's initiate, yeah? There's an adventure to be had. But he's being, tempered, okay? And having to really contemplate the potential impact of his actions. And I say he because I'm referring to this aspect within all of us. So Mars is a sign of action, okay? You can see here that is literally the glyph for the masculine, because Mars is the personal planet that represents how we act out in the world. So Earth sits between Venus and Mars. All right, we've got, you know, like the little devil and the angel on the shoulder. It's like on the one hand, we can create or destruct. Now, both are equally sacred. We need to be able to destruct, to destroy things sometimes when they're not working. So we can't demonize Mars and be like, go to your room. You know, there is a time and a place for rah and destroying that which we've outgrown. But if we act without thinking, if we act in a reckless way, we create war. So during the last 5,000 years since the Greco-Roman influence, all of our myths were distorted. And that meant how we express these archetypal energies has been distorted. So Zeus, the Sky Father, who is why many people still today think God is a dude in sandals, rather than an all omnipresent energy of loving wisdom. Zeus as a father archetype during the patriarchy has been the stern, wait till your father gets home, disciplinarian who punishes Mars, punishes Aries, the boy, by locking him up, shutting him down, and mocking and dismissing his voice, his value, and his ideas. Now, you can imagine that doesn't go well. Yeah? If you've got this beautiful, fiery energy that just wants to be a superhero, yeah, doesn't it make your heart sing when you see 3- and 4-year-olds proudly wearing their Spider-Man costume in the supermarket, or Superman or Batman? They know that they're here to be a hero. They know that they're here to serve the greater good. But when they act out without thinking, more often than not, because we haven't had any life education on how to father, and most men were underfathered or fathered in this punitive way by Zeus, they end up feeling restricted. And that creates this internal rage that either implodes as depression and self-destruction or explodes into tantrums that hurt those around them. Now, I got to add, in the 5,000 years of patriarchy, we do honour Mars, but only on a football field, only as the gladiator for our entertainment, or as a pawn in war. So he's really not had a fair go. This idea that the masculine has not been oppressed is not true. The masculine has been oppressed in a different way to the feminine. And there's no point in us having a fight about who's the bigger victim. We've got bigger things at hand to address. But we do need to acknowledge there has been an oppression. And that's what it looks like. We lock up the masculine when he acts out from wound, and it creates a monster. This is what our criminal justice system looks like. It is punitive, not restorative. So they come out feeling more angry than when they went in. The same with kids that are punished. Man, I've learned this lesson again this week just with my cat. He started using the water spray on it and it started shitting in the pot plants. Everyone's feeling the energies, my friends, even the cat. So some of us, I'm filming this from Melbourne, have been locked up for 8 months now. So you can imagine what the feeling is, particularly amongst the brothers. This will be really bringing up all of the frustration and powerless that they've felt at being misunderstood and punished rather than having people seek to understand them and to hear their voice. So what this does when we punish the shadow masculine, it creates a split in the psyche. We can see on screen Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So most men are dealing with this because we've lost, thanks to the Age of Empires, the mystic traditions that assisted people to integrate the shadow so that they were cohesive within their psyche, holistic. The more modern version of that is Hulk, fearing when he's going to get triggered and when he's going to just be completely out of control. And this isn't just men, okay? I've had to confront my own volatile rage again this week. My 17-year-old has borderline personality disorder, and guess who played a big role in that developing? My volatile rage. So this is something in the collective that we all need to look at. Okay, this is not just you guys need to work on your act. Our shadow is what humbles all of us. So we need to befriend it. We need to take responsibility for it, because without us doing that, we are destroying the sacredness of life. Whether that's our children's mental health, whether that's the state of the planet, it's happening on every level in the microcosm and macrocosm. So that's just the first reason the pressure's on. Let's get to the second reason. You can see why I wanted to do this today, yeah? Mars is currently the closest to Earth for the whole year. The day when it will be the absolute closest is October the 6th, so you might want to wear some padded clothes on that day. Now, Mars, if you go outside at night, you'll see a little red sparkly star. That is Mars. So just like when we have a supermoon, when the moon is extra close to the Earth, when Mars is extra close to us, it really evokes that archetypal energy of, whether you know him as Mars, that's how the Romans knew him, or as Ares, how he was known to the Greeks, but the warrior, okay, the hero. So depending on how he reacts or responds, he could be a soldier, or he could be a monster, or he could be a sacred warrior and a hero. So third, today, the day that we are recording this, is the day of the full moon in Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. So the full moon is when emotions run high, when what's happening in the inner self threatens to completely, come out, coming ready or not, like the kids' game of hide and seek. You cannot mask how you really feel. It's coming out. So, today is a day when we may see a huge spike in emergency room admissions, in call-outs for domestic violence, overdoses, suicides, you name it. So this is a day, if you know someone who's at risk, check in on them. Yeah, just give them a call, because, this energy, when we think about the group mind and where Aries is at, having been oppressed so much this year, which I'll speak about in a moment, it's like a powder keg that's ready to blow. So here we can see how Aries has been portrayed during the patriarchal era, which is what we are in the process of leaving. Hooray! Because patriarchy hasn't served the guys any better than it has served the women. Again, that's a myth. So this is a shadow portrayal of Aries. We see him with this look in his eye, like you just know he's up to no good, and he's got, let's see, blood all over those, you know, instruments of doom. He is not necessarily a god of war. He is a man of action. But we're grooming our young men for combat. In all of the pop culture, I mean, you know, it's about hand-to-hand combat up until about the age of 10 or 12. And then we move into video games where they can kill a lot more people a lot faster. And it's remote killing, which is, you know, even more removed, so that there's a desensitization that happens. And that's how most of our, you know, teenage boys and boys in their 20s are spending their relaxation time killing people. And it is highly addictive. So here's a bit of myth busting. This is what we've been taught about what a hero is through all of the programming. A hero uses force to beat his foe. False. The art of war says, know thy enemy. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. So again, we see in all the Marvel, you know, franchise films, our superheroes have become more and more armored up, which is so symbolic of how disempowered the collective masculine has become through patriarchy, through the loss of their rites of passage and traditional men's business. And so now, in order to feel tough and strong, you know, we have Iron Man, we have, I mean, if we go back to the 60s Batman, he was wearing tights. Now he looks like a, you know, armored car. So, you know, there's this, if someone is armored up, they are expecting a battle. It's like they've got a chip on their shoulder and they will attract one. Okay? So this is absolutely false. A hero trusts that what is within him is enough. He trusts who he is. He trusts his intuition. He trusts his heart in the moment, his instincts. You know, this is like a puffer fish that makes itself look big and menacing. It's actually just telegraphing, I'm terrified. And this is when we see guys driving Hummers and, you know, lots of steroid use. It's just telegraphing how disempowered they feel that they're compensating. Or if you're on Wall Street, it's about your big bank balance. But it's the pressure on men of I've got to appear big and intimidating, which is all a compensation. Another myth, the hero fights for the empire. I know when I was at LAX waiting for a flight, and it was like, whoa, you really realize you've walked into a military culture when, you know, and now the priority boarding for military personnel on commercial flights. It's like, what the? And they're glorifying those that are sacrificing themselves for the war machine that is the empire, that only fights for status and greed and power. So that is not a true hero. That isn't to say these guys don't sign up with valor and nobility in their heart, but then they find out that they're just a pawn in a corrupt agenda. And this is why the suicide rates amongst returned servicemen are higher than those lost on the battlefield. You know, so again, we've got to acknowledge this and support these men. Another myth is that a hero proves he's better than other men, you know, best man of the match, biggest dickers. But a true hero is not out there for personal glory. He's not out there to prove his worth. He's out there for his fellow man and woman and child. He is there to serve justice, not personal glory. So this portrayal that has been anchored and saturated within our group mind, it has a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, we're seeing crime rates escalate because if you flick on the tube, if you put on Netflix, most of it's Lucifer this and vampire that. I mean, it's just a gore fest. And that's just the teenage viewing options. So what creates that? Whoops, not that. What creates that? The wounded boy. That flags, that is what's running the show. Because when we act from wound, we wound others. And in our culture, the patriarchal culture, boys haven't been allowed socially to express sadness. They are only able to express anger. It's the only emotion that's considered manly. So of course they end up out of balance. But the fourth reason that the pressure's on, this full moon is conjunct Chiron. Those of you who know what Chiron is will probably be laughing. Chiron is what brings up our biggest core wound that we've come here to deal with, okay, this lifetime. And those of you that were born from, you know, 1970 through to 77, I'm in there, we all have Chiron in Aries. So this is the aspect that's been most wounded. So we are journeying our wound at the moment, but this full moon, it's right on it. So we're likely to experience catalysts in our life that confront us with how our wound is still running us subconsciously so that we can take responsibility for it. Now you can see Chiron as a centaur. He was the only one of his kind that transcended being dominated by just his animal nature. Yeah, all the other centaurs were renowned for their drinking and stinking and womanizing. Yeah, because they were just dominated by their animalistic urges. But Chiron, he was mentored by the wise women, the mystics, and by Asclepius, the father of medicine, who was a man who had learnt to awaken the twin serpents, the feminine and masculine meridians, by understanding the feminine and masculine archetypes that govern the energy centers to awaken those meridians and create the caduceus, the sign of the awakened man and the sign of healing that has since been appropriated by the medical fraternity and used to, you know, sell pharmaceuticals that have more side effects than healing benefits half the time. So Chiron was the mentor of the great mythic heroes, because a hero cannot complete his quest without mentoring, without someone who sees his shadow and can call him on it, who can guide him. Luke had one, just as Arthur had Merlin. So the role of a mentor, and a mentor is the mystic, someone who's taken the road less traveled, the journey within, to face their own disowned selves, their own shadow, and to create cohesion within. And they return with this insight that can help pierce the illusions of the mind that create confusion, so that when we liberate the mind, we liberate our actions, we liberate our choices in our life. So if we want to liberate ourselves from the tyranny of what has been, we must first liberate our perspective, our perception of ourselves and reality. This is how we heal our psyche, how we break the bonds of our negative conditioning. This is our current call to action. We don't just need the support of a mentor, we need the support of fellowship. So for the guys, that's the support of true brotherhood, a place where everyone's voice is equally heard and honored, not just the pyramid of the top dog, the dominant ego, and everybody else being intimidated and fearfully complying and appeasing and placating the most aggressive ego. Without the tradition of circle, a man cannot access the leader within his heart. We all need support, but the masculine has been conditioned to think he must save the world single-handed, like a Marvel superhero. Being superhuman is not about brute force. To be supernatural is about awakening the upper chakras, the upper perceptions of reality. Then we become truly awakened, superhuman. And that is the metamorphosis that we're being asked to do at this time in our evolution as a species. This is how we develop inner power so that we're no longer ruled by an external authority. Because the proof has been mounting for a long time that those in positions of external authority have been abusing their power. And so life cannot prevail in the way that it has, because all life is at risk because of that abuse of power. But it can only continue on our watch if we allow it. So, the fifth reason, Mars is now square Saturn. What does that mean? Well, a square is a 90-degree angle. So this is a challenge. You think about Mars, which is like the individual, and Saturn, which is the government. Okay, Saturn is the authoritarian. So this is a battle between David and Goliath we're facing right now. Now, this image, I'll never forget that image. I'm sure a lot of you will never forget this image of this one beautiful brother who stood for humanity in Tiananmen Square in China in front of these tanks, and he stopped the tanks. He was just standing there with his shopping bags. He wasn't armored up to the teeth. He just said, this isn't right. And with his heart on his sleeve, he just stood there with his action aligned with his values. And this image, this is what we're being called to do, to align our actions with our values. So how do we do that? Well, a lot of people are feeling the need to directly confront authority, to confront the government with the cost of locking people up, particularly the young. Yeah, here in Australia, there have been 30,000 admissions of children cutting themselves since the lockdown. Now, that far outweighs the numbers of people with 2 or more comorbidities, so that are at risk of dying from the virus. So, you know, we're going to have a big cleanup after this episode of angry young men and women whose mental health is sounding the alarm and calling us to take action on their behalf. Many will feel the urge to confront their father, their dad, with the pain of the impact of their fathering upon them. So if you've had a difficult conversation with your father recently, maybe you've cut contact, You know that you're not alone. This is all part of the shift. The real challenge is to confront our inner authority. Because we can shadow box out there. We can blame the government. We can blame dad. But so long as we think the enemy is out there, we're disempowering ourselves. Everything that happens in our holographic universe is a direct reflection of the stories and the beliefs that we are running subconsciously. So the act of power is to take responsibility for our own anger and its impact, to address where you've negated the needs of your own inner child, where you've suppressed your own voice, and step up and fulfill that so you don't feel resentful towards society or towards authority. This is also for those of you who are in the position of fathering. And I'm putting it out there to the single mothers as well, by the way, because, you know, we did our fair share of fathering and not well either. So this is about us owning our shadow with our kids, because nothing is more healing than for the reality to be acknowledged rather than denied. And we lead by example, showing them how to acknowledge and be accountable for our unconscious words and actions. The opportunity is here for us now to confront our own inner critic. That's Darth Vader within, the Dark Father, who has been internalized within all of us. We take our power back when we seek to understand and reform ourselves instead of punishing ourselves. Punishment doesn't work. And the criminal justice system, the military-industrial complex, will collapse when we stop punishing ourselves and running the belief that we deserve to be punished, that we can't be trusted with our power. Number 6. It just keeps getting better, doesn't it? So, this looks like a very angry vulva with eyes. Yes, it's the serpent of awakening. Come back, men. No, Mars is now conjunct Eris, who is the asteroid goddess of chaos, and Lilith, dark moon Lilith, who is the awakener, the serpent goddess of Kundalini that says, look at your shadow. Because if you don't own your shadow, you will remain like Peter Pan. You know how Wendy stitches his shadow on so that he can grow up and not be the eternal boy? So the immature boy will run from this, but the mature man will go, thank you. Because without seeing that, it's going to ruin and destroy my life like a corrosive cancer. So it is time to activate the rainbow serpent. There you can see it within our spine. It is the degree to which this serpent is awakened is the degree to which we experience hell or heaven. Currently, it's only made it up to the 3rd energy center, up to the yellow. And that's why we've been experiencing hell on earth. We've only been perceiving life through the physical at the red gate, the emotional at the orange gate, and the mental, the place of power. Now we are being called, especially as we approach the great conjunction on December 21st, to move into the heart, to awaken the good father, to put an end to the reign of the dark father. Whether you know that is the Illuminati or, you know, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, whatever. There's no point in taking the fight out there when we've got all the power within us to shift it. We must activate the rainbow serpent. This is what the indigenous people at Uluru are saying is the most important thing we do for the shift on December 21st, which is us going through that keyhole, through the eye of the needle into the new earth. If we choose that frequency, if we awaken the full potential of who we are as a human species, both galactic and animal, this is what we need to do to create that caduceus within our energy field, to heal the polarity of opposites within our psyche and raise our consciousness, just as Moses did on the staff and Hermes. This was the way of alchemy in the ancient world that was stamped out and outlawed by the empires like Rome, that kept us suppressed because our consciousness was suppressed. When the serpents rise, the people rise, not as an angry mob brandishing pitchforks, but as an empowered collective from the heart, as one sweeping over the globe. This is the time of the whirling rainbow prophecy, when it is said the ancient teachers would return and help people to live in alignment with the natural cycles of the earth and the cosmos to create heaven on earth, when all colours and creeds would gather and form a spiraling rainbow, gathering in circle, remembering our original human rights, our sacred traditions, and reclaiming the earth and ourselves as sovereign and sacred. The prophecy begins, there would come a time when the earth was being ravaged and polluted, the forests destroyed, the birds would fall from the air, the water blackened and the fish poisoned. The streams would no longer be. We are the ones we've been waiting for, as the Hopi said. It's up to us. This prophecy has come through from the Hopi, the Cree, the Zuni, the Cherokee, the South American, the Polynesian. This is us, no matter what color your skin. It's not about black and white, factions and divisions. It's about all colors coming together, knowing that we've been all colors in previous incarnations. This prophecy predicts the return of the rainbow warriors, those who make vows to serve the earth and her people and live as gods, knowing that we are sacred embodied in form, that is not hubris or heresy, it is truth. So a rainbow warrior is one who takes up the fight within to heal the conflict of opposites within his soul. Sound familiar? Yeah. Jedis, go. This is why this was such a huge phenomena. It spoke to the collective world soul. We said, yes, that's what we're here for. That's why I took a ticket to planet Earth at this time. I wanted to be part of that. So we're not just going to watch it on high definition. We're going to live it. But to transition from the mindset of a soldier to a sacred warrior, the hero needs mystic guidance. He needs feminine wisdom. This was always a part of a warrior's training in the ancient wisdom traditions. In the Celtic tradition of the Grail, which was the ancient religion of love, all throughout Bridget's Isle and all throughout Europa. In this Grail legend, we are warned. The Fisher King warns us, the story, that so long as the king is wounded, he can't enjoy all his riches. It feels empty and meaningless. And his wounds fester and never heal. And guess what? So does the land. T.S. Eliot's Wasteland speaks of this parable. Everything is interconnected. So we cannot heal the land if we are not socially sustainable. If we can't keep a pot plant alive, we can't keep the Amazon flourishing. We have to acknowledge our dysfunction personally and take responsibility for it. Then we won't feel overwhelmed about the state of the earth. Without initiation into feminine wisdom, the masculine is unbalanced. And so is the sacred balance of life, since everything is interconnected. In Mesopotamia, the high priestess, as a representative of Ishtar, the goddess of the rainbow, would initiate men down through the 7 levels. You can see the 7-tiered dress that she's wearing. She would help them out of the underworld, out of their depression, out of their paralysis, by helping them to see the shadow and the light in each of the faces of the God within. She was said to be the maker of kings, and a king wasn't considered fit to rule unless she said, yes, he's mature enough. He's going to be responsible with his power and not be a danger to the people in the land. Without these ancient rites, without ancient mysticism, power has become a destructive force. In ancient Egypt, Isis, the mother goddess, before she was renamed as a terrorist organization to just slur that association, she helped the god Osiris to resurrect himself from the underworld, to be reborn as a god, not just a man, by helping him to assemble his 7 masculine aspects. You are the heroes who have chosen to be here at this time. You chose to come in and heal the collective wounded masculine by healing yourselves. And in doing that, you will heal the land and awaken your inner power as gods, remembering that you are divine. You are not something you should feel ashamed of. You are wonderful. You've just had your vision distorted. But to do that, you've got to break the shackles of the conditioning that taught you to fear and mistrust the feminine. In the Nordic tradition, Thor could only get out of the underworld with the help of a wise woman, his sister, Hel, H-E-L. That's where the Christians stole the name for their version of the underworld. But what do we see represented on the movie screen? We see Thor cracking jokes as he gets out of the underworld on his own. And how is his sister portrayed? Oh, let's see, incarnate evil. There's Hel in the Marvel representation, the enemy who must be defeated and destroyed. No wonder there's a problem between the genders, both internally and externally. The most powerful thing in the hands of the oppressor are the minds of the oppressed. We must free our minds of this destructive conditioning. And bless Steve Biko from the apartheid era that coined that phrase. You have been taught to mistrust the feminine. From Eve to Pandora and every film and book. This has been created by the immature masculine to keep the men immature, like the boy Narcissus who didn't know himself, because an immature man is easier to control by the empire. You cannot control the sacred masculine. That's why the unicorn is in chains on the British Empire's emblem. They see the sacred masculine as a dangerous beast because he's untamable, he's wild and free. The immature man runs from the feminine. You can't tell me what to do, Mum, I'm a big boy. And he projects that on his partner, on female teachers, whoever. Or he seeks to dominate the feminine, i.e. nature or his partner. You can't tell me what to do. I'm a man, not a boy. And he's doing this to try and prove that the feminine has no power over him. But this keeps a man in hubris, arrogance. We are all humbled by the power of nature, of the cosmos. And it is appropriate that we are. Because if we're not humbled by the greater power of great mystery, we feel separate. And our suffering becomes so intense that we must reach out to a higher power and have an ego death and say, help. I need a bigger perspective if I'm going to get through these life challenges. And this is why we see here the tarot card of the Hanged Man. The Celts would hang upside down from a tree. The Native Americans would hang upside down from a rock. Why? To have a look at the big picture, the stars, to stop focusing just on themselves and to think about the big picture, the collective. And this facilitates a necessary ego death for the hero to mature and to get his get out of jail free card out of the underworld, out of his suffering. And without this mystic initiation, instead we see this Hanged Man. We see suicide rates off the charts. They've never been higher. And it is men that are killing themselves, primarily young men, because they don't have the tools and the insight to end their soul suffering. So it's time to make a huge shift, to fulfill our destiny by creating heaven on earth. And we do that by embodying the sacred masculine. This is the full spectrum of the masculine, okay? What we've seen since this book came out in 1990, for the last 30 years, most men's programs have used this template of the male archetypes being the warrior, the lover, the king, and the magician. But that's only 4, it's not 7. It's not the full spectrum, the full totality of the male psyche. So men feel incomplete. This is the equivalent of the maiden, mother, mage, and crone. They are the life stages that men would be initiated through in the ancient Grail traditions. When we awaken all 7 masculine aspects, we awaken the male mojo, the serpent of Kundalini, the masculine serpent known as Pingala that connects a man, bridges him from earth to heaven, and awakens his perspective. And this takes spiritual courage, because it means you've got to face every aspect within yourself honestly. And that's what it takes to then feel whole and have the inner courage to be completely transparent, crystalline instead of carbon. Christ was a man who had awakened the crystalline soul blueprint. He was absolutely authentic with everyone he met, so everybody loved him. As I'm sure Arthur was, King Arthur, to have become so legendary. These were sacred kings who had the support of a circle of brotherhood and initiation by a high priestess. That's what it takes to be a sacred leader, a god of a man. So this is a call to adventure. Starting October 26, I'm offering an online program that will literally support the men all the way up to the global Great Conjunction. So if you would like to embody the sacred masculine by integrating the light and the shadow within all aspects and learn how to express the full spectrum of your light at every gate and experience expanded consciousness and awareness, heightened intuition, increased libido and creativity. The number of men that are impotent, they're impotent to act, they're impotent in the bedroom because they don't trust themselves. I believe it is reversible when we awaken this life force, which is our sexual energy, which has been demonized along with the serpent. If you want to experience magnetic charisma that attracts people to you like moths to a flame because you've increased your wattage. If you want to increase your confidence and be able to experience ecstatic multi-orgasmic states without substances, then I invite you to consider this path. This is the preparation for soulmate union, because you can't have a meeting of souls if you haven't met all the aspects that comprise your soul. And if you want to know more about that, you can check out the program that I've just launched, which maps the 3 levels of the masculine and feminine and how they play out as the 3 levels of relationship. You can find that on my website, themoonwoman.com. So what does this 7-week online program include? You journey 1 archetype a week to understand and empower each facet of the masculine psyche. And it includes all of these different resources which you can access in the privacy of your own home when it suits you at the touch of a button. You also get these bonuses to support you. Luke, who we're going to chat with in just a moment, is a beautiful brother who really embodies the sacred masculine, even though he's a young man, because of his discipline to his spiritual practice. So yeah, we'll have a chat with him about that. He's going to be providing a daily Qigong practice to activate that serpentine meridian of energy. And also each Sunday night for 7 weeks, there will be a live men's circle facilitated by Luke and by Paul Spallini, who's also with us today, who we'll chat with in a moment. And this is to support you to process and share your experience of each one of these aspects, so that you get to access at the click of a button authentic, supportive masculine interaction without the dominant ego, you know, ruling. And I'm there online to answer your questions throughout the 7 weeks. So if you have any questions about the archetypal teachings and the raising of Kundalini, I will respond to them, you know. You also receive introductory videos and articles that explain this process of metamorphosis, of awakening this masculine serpent of Kundalini life force energy. And there is an option. If you would like to have a one-on-one session with me, I'm doing masculine archetypal chart readings to identify the current state of each archetype within you and channel personal guidance to empower them. So this whole program is $197, and we've got a special offer for those of you that have registered. You get $100 off. So that's really quite insane for a 7-week program with 3 facilitators. We are undercharging this because we want to reach as many brothers as possible. So if this resonates with you, I'd like to invite you to consider sharing this with some brothers. So without further ado, that's enough of me talking at you. I want to introduce the beautiful brothers that are co-facilitating this program with me. First of all, Luke, g'day.
Hello, and hello everyone. And it's an honour to be asked to come and facilitate this. And I've known Tanishka for a number of years, and anyone else who knows her knows that her knowledge and resources that she uses to share this information and wisdom, it's quite incredible. So it's a real honor to be part of that. And I'm someone with 2 young kids at the moment, and my life is very full. And I was feeling a calling to really connect with the brothers this year, but didn't know how that looked. And this seemed to just come at the right time. So it feels very aligned and like a real gift. So
bless you. And you know, when I said, oh, Luke, I don't know if there's going to be any money in this, he was like, it's not about the money. And I want you to know that if you're sitting watching this, we're not sitting here going, you know, this really is coming from service, both with Paul and Luke and myself. We care about you, and we feel like we have tools to help. So just speaking of those tools, Luke, do you want to just have a quick chat about how Qigong has helped you and how you feel it could help the men out there at the moment?
Absolutely. So without going too far back into the depths of my upbringing, I had a lot of adversity in my upbringing. The alcoholic father, the marriage separation, domestic violence, a very loose, crazy, chaotic home life. So I was, from a very young age, out, 3-4 nights a week. By around 12, I was out in the world and up to all the wrong things. So there was a lot of adversity and a lot of challenges that obviously I didn't understand then. But on the flip side of that, it brought me to a place a lot sooner where I was aware that what I was doing wasn't good for me and wasn't good for those around me. And I felt the calling to first train martial arts. Martial arts was my first sort of port of call. And getting together with other people that were looking to refine their life and lifestyle through those principles and practices. And from there, I found Qigong. And there's something very, very special about Qigong because it's not just a series of movements that you do and you know it looks good, like the movies, like the wushu and all of that sort of stuff. It is a science that allows you to slowly, bit by bit, unlock the personal patterns or conditions that you've grown up with in a way that allows you to understand them and change them or create change very gradually. So there's an energy, a momentum that comes through the practices that gives you more vitality, more mindfulness and awareness to actually own what it is that you've been holding on to or what you've been through. And it gives you that presence to adapt and change within that moment. Those little choices that we make, because it's those little choices that create obviously our whole entire lifestyle. So, the big choices, we spend months mulling over what car am I going to get, or, am I going to go overseas, and where we spend a long time mulling over all of those things. But those little choices that we make daily of how we interact, how we are with other people, how, I'm aware that staying up late makes me feel kind of moody the next day, but, I'm going to let that slide or whatever. You become very attuned to those habits that are playing out. And there's something about these practices that truly allows the source of the divine, that intelligence to start working through you. And I could go on for a long time because Qigong is my passion, but to just give you one other analogy as well, if you likened a tree, when we're doing life by ourselves, so just say we've never grown up with any of these principles and practices, which I was that kind of child, our feet aren't grounded in the earth and we wouldn't have any idea what's beyond ourselves. So we're living simply for ourselves, which is a very, very challenging way to live, because if you think that it's you versus the rest of the world and that you have that limited resources, then you already feel kind of self-defeated. But when you learn through these practices hold different ways of allowing us to open up to above, to below, left to right, all that sort of basic symbology that's within those practices allows us to extend outside of ourselves. So coming back to the tree, we start to plant our roots deep, 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 deep into the earth. And that actually allows us to feel more strength and support and vitality, but it starts to allow us to feel that connectedness that we have with the cycles that are happening here on the earth and how that relates to our own particular cycles. And the same goes for above. As that tree blossoms and starts to grow out more above, we start to feel that interconnectedness that we have with our spiritual resources, with the astrological changes that are happening. So that we're no longer just someone that is perhaps living a mind-body kind of life where we're activating our muscles at the gym or running, which, you know, gives us that real physical connection to the earth, and our mind where we're studying or in our career or that sort of thing. But we learn that there's another muscle, and our spiritual muscle is just as connected as those other two. And these practices remind us, they pull and push us back into alignment. And you can say that we've all been born with these energetic complexities that make us who we are. That comes from the time of birth, the year of birth, and so on. And these practices allow us to attune that particular chord of those complexities so that our chord rings true, and that we can notice when that chord isn't ringing true anymore. And that is kind of the essence of Qigong. It really brings you back to that center so that you can understand and have the discernment of when something is feeling nourishing and supportive and right, and when something is starting to not necessarily be as favorable for you. So through the practices of Qigong, you get this beautiful perspective, and you learn to dance more intimately with life and the sort of the mysteries that life has for us. Because when we start, as I mentioned before, when we're living as that singular person, we're not listening with our whole body. So we're limiting the amount of experience that we can have flowing through us. But as we learn to move our body and open up our energetic pathways, more of life is flowing through us. And in turn, we change our experience. So I'll wrap it up here. But in turn, just to be sure, I know when I was traveling when I was younger, you go out and you drink and you have this experience. It seems really big at the time, but the next following days you're more cut off from who you are. You're in sort of back to your survival mode of sorting, getting your basics right, my food, my water, and that sort of thing. But when you do practices like this, they soften you and open you up as a person, so that when you're out there in the world, if you're traveling or something, or if you're at home, you have more of an ability to not be so simply identified with, your eyesight, looking at something and taking it just for that. You might be at a sacred temple or something and actually be able to embody what the feeling is, what the essence is of that particular place, what the spiritual force is there, or what the resonance of the land, you might say. You were mentioning Uluru before, and that's what this is about. It's about being so much more than that survival mode of particularly who I was when I was a child. It's about being that full multi-dimensional man or woman, and embracing the fruits that come from that. So can't speak highly enough of Tanishka, and I can't speak highly enough of Qigong and the power that has to really activate us as people.
Thank you. It's infectious, and you're a beautiful teacher, because I'm like, damn it, I'm going to be doing those Qigong practices and going to bed a bit earlier. So thank you. Yeah, beautiful. And thank you for sharing a bit of your story, because let's face it, we're all the walking wounded, walking each other home. And this is not about holding ourselves up as, well, we've got it all together. You know, it's just creating a space of authenticity and sharing the tools. So thank you so much, Luke.
So,
Paul, I'd like to welcome you into the conversation too, lovely. So Luke and Paul will be co-facilitating the weekly circles for the men in this program. And I met Paul in Bali when he took part in a forgiveness ceremony that I did, and he was one of the willing men that said, yes, I'll come and own my shit for a bunch of women in public, and the women did the same thing. So Paul, would you like to have a chat about what you get out of Circle and why you jumped on board to offer that for the men in this program?
Thank you, Tanishka. First of all, I really find that circling with men, I did my first circle with the Mankind Project about 15 years ago. And it was the realization that, oh, wow, I'm not on my own. There are other men who are struggling the same. They're doing the same shit. They've got the same problems. I've not got to find my own solution. I've got somebody else who's been down that pathway. They understand a little bit about what's going on. As you've just said, we're no experts. I've just taken a few steps further than somebody else. I've trodden that path. I might be able to point out a few landmines not to step on. I'm stepping on my own landmines on a daily basis and going through that practice. And I just would like to say, I'm actually dealing with my father literally this week. So a lot of what's been going on, your explanation has given me so much clarity, dealing with my core wound, with my reasons so much for my actions throughout my life. He provided for us, but he was never there. And I've literally been having it out with him. And there's a huge sadness within me at the moment that he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand. He's defensive. He's can't hear. He feels his pride is that he ran his business on his own. He did everything on his own. And I was just thinking while you were talking about this, if he did it on his own, what could he have done with others? What could he have co-created? How much better would things have been? You know, I was fairly lucky in my life. I used to say that the only problem I had was I don't have problems. How deluded was I? And I've looked back and realized that, you know, my inner child and everything. I'm walking. I've walked a different path to Luke, but between the two of us, I feel we've got a huge plethora of experiences that we can offer in this circle, that we can share vulnerably what we're going through at the moment. I'm looking forward to partaking in the course myself and enjoying the elements and learning so much. You know, in just this 1 hour we've been doing this, I've learned a huge amount, and it's a case of the signposts along the road are enabling me to realize, oh wow, there's a reason for what's happening. It's not just I'm screwed up or I'm making mistakes. There are reasons, and once I can understand, for me, I've been a lot of my life in my head, and if I can understand things and I'm given a guideline as to why things are happening, I find it easier to let go and take control, get into my body, get into the processes, what's needed to mitigate this, to understand that I can actually, in a male circle, get guidance from a woman. That's okay. There is, in the circles I've been with and experienced and co-facilitated, there is a lack of the dual energy. I've done a lot of men's circles. I can bring that masculine energy in there. There is also the need for that balance, the two serpents. I'm looking to embrace more my inner feminine, to be guided through this process and to guide. But as you said, I'm no expert. I've just taken a couple of steps further down the road. I used to stop myself thinking I had to get everything perfect before I could even step up. It's not the case. I know I'm going to learn a huge amount from the other brothers on this circle. I'm open to that. I'm going to be as vulnerable to as anybody else in order to show that this is a safe and brave environment. I'm really excited for the men that are going to join us on this journey. I'm looking forward to sharing and to be shown. I'm going to learn a huge amount. So Tanishka, thank you for letting me be here. Thank you. I'm looking forward to sharing my energy, to guiding, and to helping the men that I see on a daily basis burning down the village, because they haven't been shown how and why and what is happening. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Paul. I love the point you make about, you know, if we don't have context, we beat ourselves up, you know, and yeah, just having that big picture can alleviate the suffering internally. So thank you. Love your insights, as well as your transparency. You model that beautifully. You know, that's true courage. We're showing that courage is boof, 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 but there is spiritual courage, you know, the courage to be truly seen. And that's the gift of circle, because unless we feel truly seen, not just in our good side, but also in our wounded shadow side, we don't feel truly loved. And so that really creates problems in our relationships with our family, with our partners, with our kids, even with, you know, work colleagues and friends. So thank you. Beautiful. So we're going to close now with some dig. Luke, bless him, has agreed to play his dig. There was a channeled message that came through when I asked how I could serve the men today on the full moon. And so I'm just going to recount that message that I got down while Luke plays the dig. So get comfy. Allow the beautiful serpentine spiraling energy of the shaman's pipe that is the dig. And we acknowledge the traditional landowners here and this sacred instrument of their land. So yeah, allow yourself to just free associate, close your eyes, and yeah, may it serve you well.
Okay. I was saying earlier, the dig is like an old V8, so I'll just warm it up a little bit and then you can go for it whenever you like.
Go for it. I have seen the frustration in my brothers, the desperate anger, the powerlessness at the injustice, and the corruption now coming to light all around us. But we cannot brandish a sword against this enemy. That only serves to strengthen them. They laugh at us when we retaliate with the emotional reactivity of a teenager. Brute force is no match for the sophistication of a mind game whose master plan has been crafted over time. This only gives them cause to exert great power and control with punitive measures. This time of crisis reveals who we truly are, our character, which is determined by our maturity and awareness. If we respond as children, acting out our rage on a physical and emotional level at our perceived enemy, we may feel the initial quick gratification that we've righted a wrong, but we will be deeply punished as children. And the remedy will be as short-lived as the event. If we respond as teenagers, seeking to prove them wrong in a battle of wills and wits in the courtroom, we will simply continue the political circus of debate where nobody wins, because they are trapped in the illusion of the mind and in a corrupt the only way to defeat the might of the empire and the all-pervasive control that they've woven into the very fabric of our lives is by rising above them, taking this battle of David and Goliath to a new playing field, to the next level. To do that, we must respond from our heart and soul. We must put down all armaments and take up only the sword of truth, wearing the breastplate of spiritual courage and the crown of sovereignty, bearing the rod of self-mastery. The time has come to stop watching virtual heroes and become the heroes we dreamed of embodying. We have the home advantage. If we remember who we are and where we come from, if we return home to our hearts and raise the frequency of ourselves to match the frequency of this beautiful garden planet, our Mother Gaia. Those who cannot match heightened frequencies will not be able to prevail in the new earth. We will embody a frequency that will end all, that will end the paradigm of war, that is fed by a love of power rather than the power of love. We do this by awakening our capacity to love, starting with ourselves. This is a call to gather in the lead up to the Great Conjunction on December 21st, Judgment Day, Atonement. We must enter at one with ourselves and each other through the gateway into the new earth. The portal that asks us to transcend all duality, all perception, separateness, and vision, feeling the conflict within, to enter into the heart, to experience a whole new era, prophecy as a golden age. So this is how I am called to serve you at this time as your sacred sister, sharing with you the ancient archetypal teachings, the rainbow serpent within you and within the sacred masculine of the world's soul, knowing that this is the bridge out of living in 3D hell and experiencing the multi-dimensional heaven on earth that awaits us. It is only by opposites working together, cohesively, collaboratively, harmonically, that we enter the new world. And so Thank you, Luke. Thank you to those of you that have joined us. Lynn, if you wouldn't mind putting the promo code in the chat for those, as well as the link to the page, if you feel the call to journey with us, 7 weeks, 7 archetypes. And if you're not here watching the recording and you registered, you'll be sent that promo code out. So thank you for your time. If you feel moved by what we've shared today, please consider sharing this video, this call out to the collective brotherhood. And thank you to those of you who already have. So thank you. Thanks to my team. Thanks to Shelley and Lynn who helped this to actually happen today with all the tech. And thanks so much to my dear brothers, Luke and Paul, for being my brothers, for helping birth this, which has been a very persistent inner call that I've been receiving. So thank you. All right. Blessings on your full moon, everyone. And yeah, may your birth be truly midwifed. All right. Ciao for now.